So last night, I watched a movie that made me laugh. A lot. A film from 2023. Didn't see that coming. Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well. I'm here today to talk about Renfield from last year, 2023. It was directed by Chris McKay and stars Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult, the two Nicks, I love that, and Awkwafina. And also, I feel like I need to mention one of the writers, which would be Robert Kirkman. He's a comic book writer, and he's written a bunch of stuff that I've liked and that I've owned. Stuff like The Walking Dead and Invincible, and really a ton more. I've read a good amount of his stuff over the years because I love comics. And the reason I felt the need to bring him up, while I glossed over the other two writers, is because this movie feels like a comic book. And really, I mean that in the best of ways. You don't have to be a comic fan to enjoy this movie whatsoever. I can't remember the last time I laughed this much during a movie. I mean, it was probably Step Brothers from back in 2008. I didn't even know comedies were still being made. And this movie was just the best of all worlds. Action, horror, comedy, romantic comedy. I mean, it's got it all. Oh, and tons of gore. So much. So we've got another Dracula movie here, this time played by Nicolas Cage. And I think it's important to mention that Dracula is one of the characters he has always wanted to play. And you just know he had a blast doing this, even if you haven't seen it yet. But really, I mean, the main character here, as the title suggests, is Renfield, played wonderfully by Nicholas Hoult. And I have to say, I'm liking this dude more and more every time I see him. He's just great in every role, at least so far that I've seen. Goes toe-to-toe with Nick Cage, and he isn't at all outshined. If you aren't too familiar with Dracula lore, so Renfield is Dracula's servant and his familiar. He was a lawyer in the early 1900s when he met Dracula, who took a liking to him and decided that, he would keep him as an assistant. So as a familiar, Renfield gets immortality and superhero-type strength. But after almost 100 years of doing his boss's dirty work, Renfield is tired and he's depressed. I mean, Nick Cage's Dracula is an absolute narcissist, and he uses and takes advantage of Renfield. He is completely self-absorbed. He doesn't appreciate what Renfield has done for him over an entire century, and it is basically all the telltale signs of an abusive relationship, and Renfield wants out. I mean, obviously, the horror is kind of taking back seat here, and believe me, it's totally okay because the comedy is so strong with this film. So Renfield finds a support group, and, seeing as he has nobody else to go to, really, he starts going to the meetings. And for the first time in a long time, he finds compassion in people who understand him. And even though he's making progress, he still has to help Dracula feed and stuff like that. So he figures he can bring him one of the significant others of one of his new friends from the support group, because at least he knows it's, not a great person. So through tracking down this individual, he gets tangled up with a notorious crime family, and they want Renfield dead. And through all this, he meets Officer Rebecca Quincy, played by Awkwafina. Now, I vaguely know who Awkwafina is. I know that she's an outspoken figure and seems to have gotten a lot of flack for whatever reason. I don't know a whole lot about all that. And I've seen a lot of people criticize her acting, but all I can say right now is that I really loved her here. I thought she was great. She made me laugh consistently throughout the 93-minute runtime. Her character is pretty important to the storyline. And she is one of the only police officers on the force who hasn't been bought by the Lobo crime family. And Renfield is instantly attracted to her when they meet, because she's nice to him. She's supportive and she makes him feel validated, right when he needs it the most. So Renfield moves out of Dracula's place. He's got a new studio apartment that's bright and colorful, and a new wardrobe that's bright and colorful, and he wants to, start a new life. One without Dracula. And man, I think I've already said it, I just had so much goddamn fun with this movie. I mentioned all the comedic aspects, but this is also very much an action film, because there's a ton of action scenes. And it's also some of the most enjoyable action I've seen in years. The Renfield and Dracula kills are hyper-violent and gory, and also really inventive. I mean, there's a scene where Renfield rips a dude's arms off, both of them, and uses them as spears. And there's so much blood here, and I remember reviews back when this came out, mostly complaining about the heavy use of CGI blood. So I thought that would bother me, but it really didn't. I thought it worked just fine, and I really wanted to see this in the theater, but I just kind of forgot to go, and so did everyone else apparently, because it only made like 27 million back from a 65 million dollar budget. Yikes! Oh well, what can you do? I'm giving Renfield a 7.5 out of 10. It's so much fun, guys. Just go watch it. Cheers.